You are now listening to the Here for the Truth podcast, hosted by Joel Rafidi and Yerasimos.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Here for the Truth podcast. I'm Joel Rafidi, my co-host Yerasimos with me as always, and today we returned with the presence of David Whitehead for the fifth time on this platform, diving deep into his docuseries, The Cult of the Medics. Just before we get into that, signups have now ended for Rise Above the Herd Round 7. To all those who have joined, thanks for being with us, and we're looking forward to going on this journey with you. If you are looking for community, you can check out our membership community, Friends of the Truth, at friendsofgetruth.co, and connect with a bunch of awesome individuals there too. While you're here, on whatever platform you're listening on, feel free to hit the follow button to get notified of when our next episodes come out as well. And if you're looking to watch our episodes, head to hereforthetruth.com to catch all the videos there. Anything else?
That's it. Let's bring David on.
Let's go. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Here for the Truth podcast. Man, that means absolutely no introduction. His fifth time on this platform. Yerasimos, what do we say about this guy? How do we even introduce this guy to someone listening to this for the first time right now?
Well, for the first time, go back to what episode was it? 6 was our first episode. But David, man, I say it all the time, but I just have the deepest respect for you beyond just what you've done in your work and in the truth world and conspiracy, alternative research, but just who you are as a man. I just respect you, man. I respect you a lot. You're grounded. You got a big heart. You're a badass, and just really, really, really appreciate you, man. Thank you for always taking the time to join us on our platform.
Oh, I love you guys. You guys are awesome. I feel the same way, and you're doing such good work, and your podcast is really kicking off. Your programs, your classes and all of that are just exploding. People talk about it. Our unslaved members talk about it. And so we've had you guys on Unslaved many times, and it's amazing how here you are going out and doing your work, which is just incredible. So hats off to you guys as well. And I'm glad to be back. This is awesome.
Thanks, man. We really appreciate it. And just for those listening, David Whitehead, Michael Tsarian, the work they do, in our opinion, is the top of the totem pole. When it comes to, really diving into what it means to seek truth, these guys really are the cutting edge for us. And I remember, wasn't that long ago, dude, a couple of years ago, we jumped on a call asking you, we want to start a podcast. What mic should we buy? What camera should we get?
I know it seems like yesterday, but off you go. You're almost coming up to 200 episodes in a while. Not too far out.
Yeah, no. Probably we'll get there in about a little less than a year, I think. But it's incredible.
We'll have to do a little celebration when you do. That's a big milestone.
For sure.
They say most people don't get past the first 10 podcasts.
Well, it makes sense. And I think it comes down to, again, consistency and just sticking with it. When we press record on our first episode, I don't think at that moment we were like, oh yeah, well, we're going to have 150 episodes by this date. We just had a conversation because we were inspired by it and we wanted to, and then we kept going. And then, here we are, 142 episodes later.
That's what's me too. I've done that as well. I started just sort of talking to people that I honestly just wanted to talk to them. And I figured there's no other way these authors are going to talk to me unless I tell them I've got some kind of professional setup and I got a show. And so back in the day, I'd be sitting on my lunch break in the back office, just interviewing people on Skype, and then just putting it out. And I did it literally the same way you guys are doing it, just out of a passion for it. Just because, this is, who else are you going to talk to about this stuff? You got to start a podcast. That's what it takes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. Absolutely.
And also you just see it, man. More and more people are being disillusioned with the mainstream media, and they're seeking information elsewhere. Podcasts are blowing up. Alternative platforms are blowing up. People are hungry, and they're getting inspired. And so it's everything just feeds everything else. And we see what's happening in the world. And it's really fucking cool, man.
Yeah, because I think people are sick and tired of fake ass nonsense. They can feel it from the broadcasters. It's fake. It's scripted. It's all polished. It's too polished. Mm-hmm. They love podcasts. I think they want real talk with real people. And they trust that. They trust your honesty and your, the off the cuff, and even with the rough edges on it. I like keeping the rough edges, don't make it too polished. Keep it a little bit,
throw a curse word here and there, walk the fine line of like, well, will I maybe get canceled by saying this word, whatever, just, it's
and who knows what that is anymore.
Right. But I think there's I think people are also getting more in touch with whatever that is within them that can sense sincerity. They're sensing it more, they're the veil's being lifted and they're recognizing things that are real more so. I'm not saying like everyone is, but just more so. They're tired of the bullshit.
Yeah. And also we leave it open for people to make their own decisions. We're not trying to program or condition anyone, say this is the truth. This is what we're trying to, disseminate as what you need to understand. It's like, no, we're just having a conversation. You're listening. You can make up your own mind at the end of the day.
And that's what is amazing. And that's why we need more like that emphasize that. I've always tried to emphasize that because I've got my opinions on things. I've studied things. I've got my favorite theories on things. Everybody else there listening now does as well. And that's awesome. We're all trying to look behind the veil of incredible mysteries. You guys do so much incredible work also about the mystery of the self, the mystery of consciousness, what it is to be a human being. What it is to actualize yourself in this world and to develop skills and feel productive and develop self-esteem and health and all those things. Like that's a mystery. And then there's the mystery of the world that you live in. What kind of a world do we live in? Well, we live in a world where it requires you to become those things. And so, you're going to have different takes on it. You're going to have different approaches on it. Yerasimos, I know you and Sophie are doing a little bit of jiu-jitsu and I've been back on the mats and getting that going. And my dojo's been just exploding and experimenting with new ways of teaching and new ways of training and, going with more conceptual stuff and realizing, that's another mystery and that's another vehicle. And there's many takes on it. You listen to one coach and they think, oh, it should be taught like this. And another coach, no, it should be taught like this. And I love them all. And it's funny how people break off into little tribes where they think we have to be opposed to each other because it's about who has the best truth, who has the best. It's like the old religious wars or whatever, or philosophy wars. And now those wars are in science. And and it's like, why can't we all just go, okay, there's different takes. You should listen to different takes, take notes. Like Bruce Lee said, take what is useful, discard the rest, and then add something that's uniquely yours. And that's the mission, right?
Yeah.
That's the mission.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head, man. Joel and I, and actually Sophie, we did a little webinar this past week on what it really means to rise above the herd. We're gearing up for our next run of our program. And it's like, there are so many different herds. Like what you just said, like someone could be researching something alternative, but then they're so stuck on no, this is it. Everyone else is wrong. And then you have your little community and you find it all over the place where there's these little little herds where they can't take in information. So it's like, as an individual, how do you go, okay, I get it. I'm going down this area of research and I'm more aligned with this, but how can I still stay a little bit more open to see what else is out there and to not get so to create my own little crab bucket. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to just create my own little crab bucket and anyone else that disagrees with me is a piece of shit or whatever.
Right. Or an Illuminati shill. Like we're all working for the government.
Yeah. You're controlled out, David. I don't know. You had that one guest on your show and that's it. I'm going to throw away the entire canon of work that you've done for decades because you said one thing I disagree with.
Right.
That's the silliest thing I'm observing now.
And that's how people think. And you know what? We were talking about this. Who did I have on? We were talking about this. I can't remember. We were talking about two-dimensional thinking and how it's limiting, right? Like there are many guests I bring on my show where I don't really personally agree with 90% of what they're saying, but that 10% is so valuable to the conversation or to a point I'm trying to make or a thread I'm trying to connect for people. And that's all I'm really trying to do. I mean, I have my own research and my own takes on things. I don't have to share it with anybody. I could just sit at home and just keep it all to myself. You guys could too. And we could just, but why? Like, why not get out there and share what you've got and see what resonates? And you never know where you can learn something new. You can learn something new from people that have completely different perspectives than you. In fact, that's where you should go. It doesn't mean to bite down on it. I have books full of people that write from different stances on things that, but there's there's invaluable insight in there, right? And so what's the I think it's about coming back to what's the goal? What are we trying to do here? We are trying to obtain knowledge about who we are, where we live, what's going on. And in order to truly do it, you have to be a detective. What's the detective? This was from Unslaved. This is what got me right into that way of thinking that I learned from working with Michael, because he was like that. He was the only person I ever worked with that had that kind of openness. And even though he's very convicted on his theories, he should be an advocate for his theory. I was even talking about this in the martial art context where someone was saying, oh, that one guy, there's this new guy that's coming out, Greg Sauter right now in jiu-jitsu world, where he's talking about this new ecological approach to training. He calls it ecological approach. And it's done at like the high levels of wrestling and football and some of these high level sports where you're not teaching moves. You're not drilling one thing over and over and over and over again. You're creating constraint-based games to allow a solution to emerge organically on behalf of the student. So they're actually learning how to do the art without you. That's the move. Don't put your hand there. It's too complicated. You can't, so there's that approach. And you go, oh, I really love that. Then the traditional guys are going to say, no, we still have to do a nod to the past, and we have to train, drill this on a unresisting opponent, and then refine the technique, and then do it 1,000 times, and then integrate it into the live game. And I go, well, I like taking a piece from each chapter, and I like hearing, and you know what, that guy who's advocating for this new kind of extreme, it's not extreme, it's actually brilliant way of doing it. He is supposed to argue passionately for that position. Like any philosopher, I try to tell people this too, because they'll go, oh, I don't like some of these philosophers you're bringing up. Really? Do you know that each philosopher that you bring up, doesn't matter who they are, Nietzsche, Descartes, Rand, anybody, they are advocates on the extreme end of their arguments for the sake of posturing the argument. If you don't get the fully fleshed out argument presented to you by an eloquent, passionate writer, then the entire concept can never come out. If it's all washed out with everybody else's opinions, you're not going to get it clear. So you almost need someone to take the extreme stance on their position just to advocate for it as a theory, as a concept. And then from there, it's not up to them to show that they're listening to all these different voices. It's up to you to do that. You're the one that's going to take it in and go, yeah, that one philosopher made a really good point over here. Maybe I disagreed with that. But maybe that other over here is a good idea. Or what's my idea? Forget all these other people. What do I think? And this is the process of learning. But people get stuck in 2-dimension of thought, and they create tribes and they create herds. You know why? Because they're deeply afraid. Mm-hmm. And they're so afraid of being wrong that they have to pretend that they're right all the time. I used to be like this. I think we all did. This is part of maturing, right? So but the truth will always elude you unless you can get past that attachment to, what do they call it? Attachment to the outcome, attachment to, I have to be right. You don't have to be right. You just have to be on the path of seeking the truth and stay honest with yourself, listen to all the different perspectives, and then still stay in that place where you can still stay on the outside and go, okay, I took the point. I don't have to buy it and start wearing all the t-shirts and doing all the things. I can maybe learn from it and add something new or give new language to it, So I think that's really where we should be at.
For sure, man. And that's where the inner alchemy occurs as well, is when we're able to soften that's the areas where we might be wrong and just sit in that. That's where we expand, Yeah.
But also when you're exposed with things that run counter to what you believe, if you really are sincere and open to it, it allows you to kind of sharpen your own argument based on like, do I really know what I know? Can I really communicate it in a clear way when I'm presented with something else that's different, that's challenging that? So, I do the best I can to be exposed to things that are, like, I guess, opposite to what I currently believe. But that's been part of the journey anyway for the last 20 years. But yeah, I totally agree with everything you're saying there, man.
Yeah, you have to. Otherwise, even let's say you run up against something that you don't agree with, or maybe you even see as, okay, this is a flat out lie that's being put out there to distract people, or it's another carrot on a stick or something. If you feel like that is what we're talking about, then you should be able to know the arguments made. Like, look at this. What are the arguments being made by, say, the United Nations right now? What they have Antonio Gutierrez, the UN chief, going out and saying all kinds of stuff right now. And he's the spokesperson, and he's clearly reading a script because he stumbles over it all the time. And you go, okay, what are their arguments? What is Klaus Schwab's arguments? What is Anthony Fauci's arguments or the argument of your government right now. They're making an argument and they're doing actions in the world based on that belief system. And if nobody challenges it and goes, hold on a minute, what are you guys are? The only solution to all the problems in the world is to consolidate power into the hands of you guys and then give you all the money and the resources. Like, wow, that's kind of a convenient solution to all these problems, eh? And you sit back and you go, but I have to learn where did they get their ideas? This was what I've been trying to do is where are what's the premise of the arguments being made by these world government people right now? Where did they even get it? Well, they didn't invent it. They're all reading a script. So who wrote the script and where did that come from? And then that's where I've been trying to dive into is track that down. That's what we've done on Unslaved and find out, oh, this goes back to a bunch of religious cults. It's not a political movement at all. Nothing that they're talking about is a political movement. It's just, in my opinion, a religious idea taking place in the political arena. And if you're not equipped with the arguments, the counter arguments, and you don't know every aspect of what they're trying to put out there, then you will be forced to acquiesce to what they're trying to ask. And you won't have an answer when they come up and go, well, how are you going to answer this? You have to be able to equip yourself with that, in my opinion.
Yeah, man. Well, speaking of which, you've been creating the docuseries Cult of the Medics. This has been an ongoing process for over 2 years now, right?
Yeah, I think it's been many years in the making, collecting, the research. I wanted to do it earlier than I had done. I wanted to do it back in 2018, but I held off. I'm kind of glad I did. Because then I got
oh my gosh
the carpet rolled out for the perfect backing of my thesis to come with it, so which with the pandemic. So I did it during that. So yeah, I started putting it out in 2020, I believe 2020, 2021 maybe. And then from September now. So now I'm on chapter 10.
Yeah. I think I saw September 21 was the release date of episode 1.
Ah, thanks. Yeah. I should hire you guys to try. I don't forget all the dates. I don't
Dave, what was the inspiration? Obviously you said you wanted to do this back in 2018, but like what was it that was kind of like getting at you inside that wanted you to cover these subjects and look at these religious cults or just to dive deeper into these subjects?
Well, thanks. First of all, it was just a pure fascination, like curiosity. I'm like, yeah, why do all these modern medical institutions have so much ancient symbolism and ideology, and even from the white coats and the black coats and the whole thing? Like, is there something to that history? And I was looking at it at first, not to think of it in any kind of a dark way, just sort of like curious, where did things come from, And then my own personal life, having members of my family, friends of mine, just having nightmare stories when they run into these medics and these doctors, having my own bad experiences and just going, why are so many people that I know, including my own mother, who was a big example for me to watch grow up, where I grew up in emergency room waiting rooms. I grew up in hospitals waiting for my mother because she was in there all the time. And I watched it happen, and I couldn't believe that with my mother and with so many other people that I knew. I had another member of my family succumb to cancer. They had got cancer back in the 90s, got rid of it, and then it came back 5 years later and was very fast acting. And, she sadly passed away. And I had other friends, and I'm like, why is it that every time these people are going into the hands of these medics, or not every time, but most of the time that I'm seeing, they're coming out with prescriptions for medications that have lists and lists and lists of side effects. And they're taking so many of these things at once. And then they're being brought in for surgery after surgery and this and that. And then, you need psych meds now. Go see a psychiatrist and get those meds. So you're on meds for a physical problem, meds for a psychological problem. Then you're getting cut up. And I'm like, you're not getting better. You're getting worse. These guys are creating lifelong customers. Like it became something I observed. Right. And then it was, there's books of people that have come out from within the medical world and expose the fact that there's something very dark happening, at the top, at least. Not every doctor, not every nurse, absolutely not. It's compartmentalized, but that the main system, the pharma system, operates like an actual cartel. It operates like a mafia enterprise in the way that it conducts business. Multiple convicted felons, charges galore, paid out billions of fines. Like no industry has paid out fines the way pharma has immunity from prosecution. Like what kind of power do you have to be able to create products that could kill and maim people and to keep getting away with it, even though you pay a couple fines, which is nothing to these companies. And then you're back in business and everybody's like, you're the holy God of the new world. You're the unquestionable authority. And yet we've got thousands of years of natural health. And look what you guys are doing on the body and the mind and so many facets that fit into what it means to be healthy. Why isn't that also, at the very least, why isn't that also being taught in the mainstream medical world? They're actually suppressing it, censoring it, smearing it, talking about it as quack medicine to grow things in your backyard that can cure an ill disease. Well, they don't want you to have access to medicine that they can't patent and profit off of. And they don't want you to know that all the solutions for your health exist right in front of you and you don't need them. That's the biggest secret, in my opinion. So these are the things that I started to learn. I learned from, I think, some very great teachers. And then I'm thinking, okay, this is even bigger than the medical system. What's with all the human experimentation? What's with all the, there's some very dark chapters out there of people or stuff that happen that people aren't really thinking about when they look at this subject, the origins of it, getting back into different periods of history. And then you start seeing, well, what are they doing now? They've got this whole transhumanist cult running around. And again, I'm not saying anything negative necessarily about technology. I'm saying there's a particular cult of people that are they're creating this idea in the public mind about ascending to a new level of human or evolving the human, or what are they calling it? Controlled evolution, right? And so I'm like, who are these people that think that they can tinker with the primal forces of nature and that they know better, right? Who are these people? Is this a new phenomena because of technology? Or have these types of people that have this particular worldview been around for a lot longer? And lo and behold, you go into the ancient record and you find out, yeah, there's been a sort of idea in a lot of these ancient cults to transcend the physical body, the physical vehicle, and create through a process of what they would call alchemy, but I would just call it dark alchemy, to alchemically alter the human being and evolve it, force evolve it. And while that might sound good to somebody out there who maybe not understand who we're dealing with here, you got to look at the track record. And so that's what Cult of the Medics is me saying, basically I'm just asking questions. I'm mostly asking questions. I don't have all the answers, but I have enough questions to hopefully stimulate the logic in people to start going, yeah, that is it. That is a good question. Like, why would that be the case? Like, and we go through it one step at a time. And I'm trying to get to the origin of it all and try to see, is there something bigger going on here? Is there something like really big going on here that this medical system, the corrupt political system, all these things we talk about, maybe they aren't separate occurrences that are happening. Maybe they're an overall effect of something much bigger that's happening and might have been happening on this planet for a long time. So it's a big theory. I don't expect everybody to bite down on the entire bit of it, but I feel like, again, if you put it out as that, it helps to at least open some doors of information for people they've never seen before. And when you go, hey, what if I put all these pieces down in front of you at the same time? What does that do? And I think that's what makes it a powerful series, is that we're doing that in a way that I haven't really seen done as of yet.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're getting ready to release episode 10. I've only watched the first 5, so I need to catch up.
Yeah.
But even just the first 5, I mean, what you've done with the narration and the found footage and the music, I mean, it's really, really engaging. It's really powerful. And like you said, it's like, this is your work. Here it is. Take a look. You want to go research it even deeper? Do you want to see and look into your life and go, how does this apply to my life? You know what? Wow. Actually, I got family members who have gone into the system and have come out dead or even more maimed or just living a less enjoyable life, And I just think it just has to be put out there, man. I mean, my history too is I started paying attention, I started questioning things. I had some health issues. Family members had health issues. My eldest brother, who passed away in 2008, he was like a poster child for Western medicine. He's like, oh, I just need to get a surgery, or I need to do this, or I need to take a pill. And, and then you start reading books and if you have an open and active mind and you just go, whoa. And then if you're connected to an intuition and you can, just analyze things in a certain way, you go, this just doesn't seem right. And then that just leads to the next thing, which leads to the next thing. So, man, the amount of information that you have just in the first 5 episodes that I've watched is like incredible,
Thanks, man.
But from your point of view, like, and your research, where does it start? You talk about these ancient cults and then everything's evolved from that. Like, where's the beginning point?
Well, you could go into very specific, like I have my theory that this goes back to, you can trace a lot of the symbolism and the sort of ritual of it all. You can go back to Greek civilization. You have the cult of Asclepius. It's actually called the cult of Asclepius, where that's where you get the staff of the snake.
The Greeks.
Yeah, exactly. And not to say that it was all evil or bad or anything like that. That's the other thing we got to understand is that we're dealing with a double-edged sword because we're dealing with human beings, right? If we look at this as this isn't you could look at it as just a group of people doing something, or you could look at it as these are humans that are ultimately corruptible if they're not oriented correctly, right? And that anytime there's a power opportunity of gaining power over a population or in any way, you have the potential for corruption. You have the potential for infiltration. The medical system can also be used as a vehicle for infiltration by foreign enemies, right? We saw this in periods of history and up to our present moment, I believe, where you might have good people starting something that is oriented towards health and towards a positive outcome for humanity, but then they get overtaken by the more cunning, psychopathic, power-hungry people who you see it as a vehicle for their own ends, right? So there's that. But yeah, you could go to the origins of starting with that cult of Asclepius. You can get into the concept of pharmakia that you might hear talked about in the Bible or some of these other ancient texts where they're talking about some of these witch covens and some of these priestarchies that were utilizing the knowledge of herbs and various poisons from various animals and plants, which have dual purposes, right? They can be used for healing and they can be used for, mass genocide. So it's quite the spectrum. So I think that what we could first start off with is let's look at the symbolism of the medical world, right? You've got obviously serpents galore. Okay. The serpent is a dual symbol as well. Originally a positive mark of wisdom from Egypt. It was the idea of wisdom and understanding. They viewed the serpent in that light. But then you had a more dark version of that through some of these different Setian cults that adopted the symbol of the serpent because it was already respected in the public mind. And they looked at it as a symbol of power because the serpent is also one of the most cunning predators, one of the most incredible species that exists, very cold-blooded, reptilian, non-human. You know what I mean? Like, so you can see that just in that you go, okay, the symbolism is interesting because it is ancient. You got the cup of Hygeia as one of the main pharmaceutical symbols, right? So it goes back to these ancient civilizations. And most medics would say, yeah, that's a good thing. We got a lot of our civilization from there. Absolutely, we did. But it's just looking at it in that naive light that it's all holy and perfect and pure. That's occult doctrine alone. The fact that you're not even allowed in the medical world to even challenge or question the origins of the system, anything, let alone challenge any of the modern theories or the modern vaccines or anything like that, you're immediately a heretic. Well, again, another mark of occult for me, that you see these heretics out there. I call them heretics, like the doctors that challenge the status quo. Whereas in science, you're supposed to have the ability to do that in order to get to a better theory, right? So you have sort of these, and then I look at it like, okay, if we come up to a more modern time, okay, maybe I'll say something more about the ancients, is like, you think about the royal dynasties, whether we're talking ancient Egypt, Greece, or even medieval period or whatever, you had always the medical advisors to the royals, the royal medical staff, essentially, right? Who would take care of the pharaohs, take care of the kings and queens. And then you had the people starving and dying of disease and plague all around them. You even get into stories of the Black Death in Europe and how the elites of that time, many of them had medical officers on staff that knew how to deal and prevent it through diet and other things. And so they were immune from getting this plague, but yet the people are starving and dying in the streets, and they're not being handed those remedies. So there's many cases like this where you're going, well, actual remedies were held back by various elites at the time from the people. And you makes you wonder, is that just we're the vicars of the gods, we're the leaders, we have to preserve ourselves, and we can't help the poor guy, even though that's what our station demands of us? Or is there is there a use of this knowledge of medicine that's been used before for depopulation in the past? And, you preserve the kings and you get rid of the people you don't want. It's been used to take out enemies, the various poisons and things that were developed to be able to complete assassinations. You can get into the role of the assassins, So the history of it is really fascinating, but it's a little more murky if you want to pin it down, right? Yeah. If you get a little more modern, we've got more evidence where you can get into, I personally believe Western medicine was on its way to become the envy of the world. Like we had the technology, we had this modern science, and then we also had the knowledge of the ancient herbology and all that. So if you were to put that all together, what kind of a medical system could you have? You could have something that could liberate the world from disease. We've had great thinkers in the West that had great ideas about how to achieve better health and longer lifespans. And yet something happened where you can get into the Rockefeller family and the Rockefeller medicine. I do a chapter called the Rockefeller Syndicate. I think it's in chapter 6. We look at Eustace Mullins' work on that and the origins of the FDA, the basically total takeover of the medical system by the Rockefeller Syndicate. And then you had the Flexner Report, which was out there discouraging any kind of natural paths. And there was a war with the natural side of it. And they basically flushed that completely out of the system, even though it was part of it originally in America. They flushed that right out and replaced it with this new scientific approach that was very much based on a particular worldview of materialism, right? And that we can solve everything with drugs and surgery, and then therefore profit. So it became a profit industry. Now, there's nothing wrong with profiting if you're doing it through legal means, when you're being upfront and you're actually selling something to the public that actually works and benefits them, then fine, go ahead and profit all you can. But if you're doing it nefariously because you have a belief that there's too many humans on the planet and that you have a mission to help with that, as Bill Gates likes to talk about, then, what are we dealing with? And then my question is, with these guys today that run it, and what we saw happen with the pandemic, the question is always, is this the first time this has happened? Is there a pattern that we can look at in history where this has happened, where this medical system has been used as a weapon against the people, not as an assistant? And what better system to use than that? Because I make a case in one of the chapters about how to obtain full spectrum control, if that's what your desire is. Well, if you want to do that, so you want to control all the land, resources, and wealth, you have to maintain control of the people that live on that land, right? And so, and then if you are looking at it in the sense that you're managing almost like livestock, because that's kind of how I think they look at us, what does that look like? And so the history of corruption and all these instances we've seen within big pharma and the medical world, and even what we just witnessed, is that an anomaly? The way a lot of the doctors now who are waking up to what's going on are probably thinking, oh, this is an anomaly. It just became corrupted because we got China infiltrating us or something. And you go, well, what if I showed you that this started like 100 years ago and has been a project that's been going on to use the medical system as the front for something else. And the reason they use the medical system is because it's connected to our survival, right? In our minds, the archetype of the medical system, those symbols, the white coats, that's viewed by the public as that's my lifeline, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're, and that's what's going to keep me alive, and that's who I have to go to for health advice. When you can hijack that, man, you can control the whole game. And then if you got the one priestarchy that's controlling the view of the afterlife and the spiritual dimension, which is your Vatican and all the religions and all that. If you can take those over and infiltrate them, then you can get a hold of people's feeling of survival in the afterlife. And you can control them by saying, well, if you don't follow all of our edicts, you don't get to go through the pearly gates, man. You're going into a fiery pit of hell or whatever. And that's an easy whip of control. But when that fades, and I think that's what happened in the sort of maybe 19th, 20th century, because, people were getting disillusioned with these religions and all of that. It was kind of wearing thin. We had the Renaissance, we had the scientific revolution. So then they went, okay, we need to create the same dynamic of control that we had with religion within the medical world, because that's where people are going for their saving grace now. They're not going to pray in church. They're going to the doctors and the medics. So that's why I feel like there's so much of a culty vibe of modern medicine now, that it's because they were one of the branches of replacement for what was lost when the grandeur of religion started to fade away. So that's sort of a nutshell, I would say.
That was a great nutshell. And, man, they're tapping into the deepest vulnerability of like a fear of death, of a person. Yep. That's just the fear of death. And they could just, like puppets on a string, they can just move you around and have you do what they want you to do. And even you think about the censorship, like, oh, it's new, it's modern, but like there was different forms of it, even with the Flexner Report. I mean, how many naturopathic schools and herbology schools and chiropractic schools that were out there, and they're like, yeah, no, you're not legit anymore because we've come up with this this organization, or I don't know, is that when like the AMA started, American Medical Association, around that time, or was that later on?
Yeah, the regulation agencies, yeah.
And I think I remember reading even like the 4-year medical school is just an arbitrary number that they just like throw out there. It's like, okay, this is what it's going to take for you to be certified to be able to tell people how to be healthy and to heal them. But again, it all started back then, man. So it's just like, it's a continuation process. And even you talk about the COVID thing, you go back to the early 80s. This was my biggest wake up within the medical system, was like diving into like the dissident community around the HIV and AIDS. When you have people like, I read Carrie Mullis's autobiography in 2005, and that rocked my world. I was like, wait, what? This guy won a Nobel Prize and he's challenging this like behemoth of an industry, and he's saying that the foundations of everything were based on a falsehoods. And then obviously who was there at the beginning? Dr. Fauci was there. So for me, that's what, lit a light bulb in me and kind of continued me on my path. And so the minute I saw, I already wasn't, buying what was being sold in 2020, but the fact that like Fauci was the figurehead, I was like, dude, this dude's the biggest fraud that exists.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's many such instances, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is I've got a catalog of instances like that and people like that who are like, they're in there for 30, 40 years in these positions, right? And they're clearly representing other interests. That's what they are. If you're seeing them in the public and they're out there delivering the script, they are just they're the people that are put as the front men. And my question was, who's behind the front men? And that's where I started to dig in and put theories into my series about who I think it could be. What's the best way to track it? You start with tracking the symbolism and these various orders and groups that were the financiers and the molders and shapers of the industry. And then that's where you get into what got me going, was when I had also been doing this research into these secret society networks that were happening, particularly around the 1700s in Europe, right? That moved their way into America. And they were underground movements. They were undercurrent movements. And then you have all these prime ministers and generals and statesmen and, even various businessmen who were speaking openly about how there was these secret society networks operating behind the scenes, right? And you see, I was doing that research project as well, because that's another interest of mine. And we've done that with, obviously, Michael on Unslaved. Mm-hmm. And you keep coming back to some of the same organizations. One of those is the Knights of Malta. One of those is the Vatican, all these orders and satellite orders of the Vatican, that when you start looking at them on the surface, you just think, oh, these are just relics from the past, little clubs that are just a sort of, keeping some tradition going, like a men's club or something, or a woman's little club. It's all it is. But then you go, wait a minute, they're made up of like dukes and kings and queens and royal dynastic families. They're made up of politicians. They're made up of military generals. They're made up of doctors and lawyers. And these are the elite of the elite that are kind of under this jurisdiction of a cult, of a secret society. So what does that mean? Does that take their allegiance away from the public, right? Does that, like, you got Democrat, Republican in the political world, and you find out, oh, they're both members of Skull and Bones. Doesn't matter who you get in, or some of these other orders. Do they really hold allegiance to America or to Canada, or do they hold allegiance to these secret networks, right? So same thing. Does your doctor really have his allegiance with you? Maybe he believes he does, but in the end, when you challenge him on enough things, all of a sudden he has no allegiance to you. He's like, I'm not going to see you anymore because you don't want to take my advice. I'm like, well, I'd love your advice, but you're just giving me what the DMV is telling, or the book in your drawer is telling you, which is written by the pharmaceutical industry. And you're sponsored by them. You have a financial incentive. Like, look at during COVID, there was a financial incentive to give people remdesivir, to give them the particular protocol. And, they're even profiting off of people who are dying from COVID in the hospital.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back. We had a little power outage in Mexico, so we're back here, obviously, with David, continuing this. I think we were getting into talking about financial incentives, but I just wanted to highlight one thing where it's so interesting to think about, where you would think the average person would realize that these industries, the hospitals and, the pharmaceutical industry, like they only exist if you're unhealthy and if you're sick. If you're doing great and well, they don't make any money. On that front. So it's just, I don't know. It's one way to look at it that I think people miss.
Yeah. I think we're talking about looking into the nature of cults. Then you make the connections how, oh, hang on, they're all into this stuff. They're all in the same fields. They're all in the same industries. They're all coming from dynasties, etc. But one question that I had is one thought is this happens every single time the state is involved in any industry. Corruption follows. So part of me wonders is what would a private, completely laissez-faire capitalistic healthcare system, what kind of incredible innovations would be possible without the state bottlenecking, this potential? The same thing occurs between the state in economics or the state in transport. You get the shittiest results possible to humankind. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm living in Canada, and everybody a lot of people in Canada like to brag, well, we have an amazing healthcare system, and it's sponsored by the government. It's a socialist healthcare system. Mm-hmm. And, and you're like, yeah, but look how inefficient it is. Look how incompetent it is on so many fronts. And then the argument they're going to say when we talk about a free market private enterprise is, well, wasn't the Rockefellers a bunch of capitalists? Weren't they? And the guys you're saying infiltrated the whole thing. Let's say that's true. Because actually the left in America used to be all big conspiracy when it comes to big pharma for the longest time. Okay. Yep. Now they're the biggest cheerleaders. And I would just
when was the flip real quick? What was the flip you think on that?
With the left?
I remember that. Yeah. When the left was just pharma corporations, and now they're just rah, rah, rah.
2014. It's pretty recent.
Yeah.
It's been a slow recent, because here's the thing. First of all, I just did a show trying to talk about how we have to get past political divisions here, right? Because what's left-wing today is not left-wing tomorrow, or right-wing today it's all skewed. Even left-wing and right-wing in, say, European context is different than American context. And then American context in the 50s versus now. It's confusing. And when you find out, look, you're voting for Mason A or Mason B. It doesn't matter at this point, right? Now, you do get good people that can get in the system, but that's another show to get into. I don't want to segue too much, but here's the thing. You got to remember that you have the public square, where you have what we think is left, right, private, public. That's what we believe. But then there's the reality of it, of how it really functions, which is that you have these players that are well above that. They sit on a different table in a different universe. They have their own political ideologies, their own religious ideologies, and their own worldviews. And they're simply using those elements of the public square to maintain the facade for them, right? So that's why when we talk on that on the public square level all the time, we're never going to crack it. But when we zoom out of it and go, oh wait, these are a bunch of dynastic, culty, religious people of their own right that have essentially seized control of these industries over time and know how to kind of weaponize the left and right paradigm against itself so that we're divided and we never see that we're all being played equally, right?
Yeah.
So like, here's the thing. In the left, they would say, I would say the thing about the left, what we call the left, or people that have that mentality, which means, in my opinion, they want more government control over the means of production, right? Because my way of defining and it's not mine. I mean, I've learned this from smarter people than myself, but like in my opinion, the true political spectrum is the more left you're going, the more government control you want, the less personal freedom, the less private property, the less personal responsibility. You're going towards more government control. The more right you go, you're going towards anarchy, right? It's not fascism versus communism.
You're going towards more religious control, though.
Exactly, right? And I'm not a political anarchist. I don't believe that that's where humanity's at. Maybe philosophically, yeah, the individual, that kind of thing. But those definitions are pretty hazy. I don't want to get into that hornet's nest right now. But to keep it simple, when we're thinking about where it went wrong, you got to remember the modern left, okay, who used to be about fighting the big government and fighting the censorship and fighting the controlled monopoly media and the big guy and standing up for the little guy. It's why is it suddenly now that particular ideology, the people that are in that camp and that vote left, why are they actually the advocates for the biggest, most powerful corporations in the world, which is pharma and these Silicon Valley, and these are still run and controlled by the same people that run Halliburton and all the oil companies, which are their nightmare because they're all into the climate stuff. So they don't realize they're a walking contradiction. And I think it's because of their sort of general open border policy in general, right? Mm-hmm. Let it all open up to everybody. Like they're collectivistic to the core, right? And that primes their institutions and their entire movement for infiltration from people that are way smarter and know, oh, okay, easy capture here. Right.
Yeah, but when you don't have personal values will be implanted. And that's simply what's taking place.
There you go. That's it. So you were asking Joel about the private system. So if we had, actually it's happening now. Here's the answer. It's happening now in Canada and other places because there's doctors that got fired from their positions for speaking out against this. Mm-hmm. Okay. And now they're not working. They're losing their licenses. These nurses that got fired all over the place, what are they doing? They're not able to pursue their careers that they divested their whole lives into. So what are they doing? They're creating online consulting, private consulting. Brilliant. We need more of this. I've had many conversations with doctors offline there, and they're formulating these movements to try to build a sort of two-tiered or private system because people are seeing you go to emergency ward in Canada, you're going to wait 8 to 13 hours, even if your arm is falling off, right? It's just lined up around the block by people who are there for every little thing imaginable. And so it's not efficient anymore. And then those doctors and nurses aren't getting paid the same as they would get paid in, say, the US or other places. So the best of the best are going to the countries that have more of a private system where they can make more money doing what they do, right? So the guys that are here, we're not dealing with the cream of the crop anymore. So there's no incentive, right? And this is the failure of socialism that the Mises Institute pointed out and everything else. And so people think, well, I have free healthcare because I don't have to pull up my wallet when I go to the doctor in Canada. I'm like, do you honestly think you have free healthcare? You think they just fart it out and it just exists? Or do you think they extract money through taxation with the threat of physical force if you don't pay your taxes or imprisonment, and then they get to allocate where that money goes and how it's spent and who gets in there? And then you walk in there and, I didn't have to pull up my wallet today, but I'm pulling it out because they're taxing 60% of my income or more. You are paying for it and it's shit.
You have stolen healthcare.
Yeah. Exactly. So there are solutions, and maybe there's a blend. I don't know, but I think that if at least you had a free market, because people go, well, what's to stop another Rockefeller monopoly in a free market from taking over and corrupting it and turning it back into the thing? Yeah. I mean, but here's the thing. There are checks and balances that can exist in the free market where you have options and the market corrects that. If you have options, if it's run properly, right? And then the only time a law, like the government or the law, comes in is if actual laws, which should be totally defined and used to be defined, are broken, right? That's the only function of the state, is to come in if actual laws get broken. But when it comes to the products, here's an example of what we could have done in COVID. We could have said to the people, the World Health Organization or any of them, which shouldn't really exist, but if any of them came out and said, all right, guys, we got this problem. We got this flu flying around. It looks pretty dangerous to certain demographics. So we're going to give you, here's the best we got. We're going to develop a vaccine. It's going to be rushed to production. We don't know if it's going to be perfect. We don't know if it's going to be effective. Like if they were honest, because that's the truth, it might cause lots of side effects because it's new, right? So we're going to do it because we're just here to offer you a solution. But here are other solutions as well. There's therapeutics, there's natural remedies, there's a whole list of all the things that all these other doctors and medical experts came up with that got what? Censored. Okay.
Don't watch the news is another solution too. You know,
and then shut the news off.
Don't live in fear is another one. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. Right. And we can keep going on the solutions there because there's so many. But the beauty is, like, let's say some people said, well, they sold me with the argument of the vaccine, because that's what all of these sales pitches are. They're arguments. We're making an argument. I'm making an argument for my dojo and my business and my podcast. You're making an argument for yours. And then the people get to decide. I want to sign up at your dojo. I want to watch your podcast. I want to do your thing. And then if they don't like it, they don't have to do it. They can go, you know what? I felt like I was getting worse, not better, after I took your product. So I'm going to go listen to that other guy for a little bit. That's a free market. Okay. When you have the government in there saying, you must take this one seasoned solution that we have created for you, and all others are evil and wrong. What does that sound like? That's like every religion and every cult we've ever existed. So when I come out and call this cult of the medics, I'm not exaggerating that term. It's literally the definition of what it is to be in a cult. And so I started to point this out, and I definitely think there are many solutions to this. And I think more privatized healthcare would be better in this regard. And I think we also have to do something. We have to do what many doctors are calling for, which is a scientific moratorium on the entire industry. The entire industry, top to bottom, go back through history, look at the numbers and go, where did we go wrong here? And a scientific moratorium is basically where we bring it to a sort of trial in the public arena, in the medical arena, where we can analyze it objectively and see where the problems are, where the corruption are, where the leaks are, where the failures were, where the mistakes were, and then fix it. The fact that they don't want to do that, the fact that they don't want to do side-by-side tests between vaccinated and unvaccinated and come out with honest results on it, the fact that they're censoring the people that are doing those studies should tell you everything you need to know. That the more I look at this and the more anybody looks at this honestly, they're going to start to see what I posed in chapter 7, which was the statement, there is no innocent explanation here. There is no explanation for what they did during this pandemic. And I'd say right back to the origin of it, that you can just come back and go, oh, it's just a few mistakes. They just overlooked a few things and they made some mistakes and it's just human error and we'll be better next time. No, we're not there anymore. The amount of evidence that we have now only points to the fact that there is no innocent explanation, that there is another agenda afoot, and they're actually coming out and just basically telling us to our faces right now, right? So people are running around going, who's doing this? Why are they doing this? And that's what I'm trying to do in the series is go, I'll take my best shot at it. I think we're pretty close here, that we're dealing with something that flies well above your government officials. You can't tell me that your government is in control when they're all in debt to the same people. Whoever controls the debt controls what's going on. And also, it's the track record of the politicians who are there to supposedly be the arbiter between us and these instances. They're supposed to be regulating and protecting the public from these things. When they're not doing that, right as we're watching all these things happen around us, Well, that must mean it's by design that it should continue this way, right? And that's why we got to start going, okay, what's this really all about? And who's really driving this? And I think only when we get that can we really get the final, a good solution that will get us out of this mess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a free market that makes monopolies impossible, which is what people don't realize. And so answer people's questions in terms of, where the Rockefellers stand, or again, use an Ayn Rand quote, when a businessman makes a mistake, he suffers. When a bureaucrat makes a mistake, you suffer.
Yeah. Yeah. The fact that they can incorporate. See, I don't think a lot of people know the idea of a corporation is not part of free market capitalism. That was something that came later. What does that do? It creates a situation where you can have a monopoly and you get to be bailed out by the government. And if you have corporations working in tandem with government to obtain monopolistic power, what do we call that? We call that fascism.
Fascism.
That's what we call it. What's fascism? Is that a right-wing ideology? Conservatism, libertarianism? No, it's not. It's socialism is what it is. It's monopolistic control over the means of production. You can say it's corporations. You can say it's government. What's the difference today? Who's the real government? Is it Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden? Are you kidding me? These guys can't even wipe their own ass without help, okay? It's not them. Google, Silicon Valley, big tech, BlackRock, Vanguard, big pharma, the corporations working behind the government that is in debt to these international banks, like the banks in Switzerland and England and the Federal Reserve System. That's your government. It's the government behind the government. And I've done presentations going through scores of quotes of very prestigious people over the last 100 years coming out and talking about exactly that. So what we call capitalism today, you can't even use that word without triggering everybody, because they're thinking of the crony globalist style capitalism of the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and all these people, right?
Yeah.
Which is not capitalism, because it gives them an unfair advantage on the board, right? So if they, there are solutions outside of that paradigm, and that would fix this argument between the left and the right about what the solution is, because we got to realize the fascists, the Nazis, the socialists, the communists, they were all sponsored and financed by the same exact people throughout history. These were, to me, were just experiments. I just did a whole show on this.
Yeah.
And I think that when we realize that we've been divided on purpose and pointed away from solutions which would be more organic and would promote more freedom and more positive solutions and give us a thriving economy instead of this one that is just like, my God, I went and bought 3 items at the grocery store and it's like $75. Gas is over $2 a liter right now in BC. And I'm like, and they're telling us, they have the balls to come out and tell us, Chrystia Freeland, our economy, we got more jobs and it's booming. And you're like, you're insane. You're insane. And so, to me, these are puppets on strings, and we just got to stop listening to them and start finding our solutions for ourselves at this point.
Yeah. So I guess these cults or these individuals who you mention are above and beyond the chessboard. What is their religion?
Order of the Black Sun, man. Their religion is power. Let's just keep it as simple as possible. Power. And why would people, why? I mean, that's the oldest drive in history, isn't it? More power. Mm-hmm. They're going to tell you that they're gaining the power that they're gaining in these NGOs and these global government apparatuses and roundtables and whatnot and corporations, that they're doing it for the good of humanity. So they are what Thomas Sowell calls these types of people, the typology of people is they call themselves the anointed. They're like he wrote a book called The Vision of the Anointed. These are the people that C.S. Lewis commented on these types as well. The do-gooder, two-gooder shoes, the people that come out and they're there. We're here to help humanity and we're here to solve all the problems. Just give us more power. These types of people have existed from as far back as you can remember, and they're with us today. And just to keeping it general, these are the people that have completely externalized everything. They don't have an internal compass of, they don't have any inner power, in my opinion, which is why they have this instinct to seek external power and control. They're deeply in conflict with the order of nature. They don't like the natural world. They don't like what it is to be human. They don't like that humanity within them. And so they are seeking to change humanity. And this is where the idea has come from, that we need to create humanity 2.0, merge us with technology, upgrade and fix human. There's this whole idea of we're going to fix humans. We're going to fix you, right? Through re-education camps, through indoctrination, through programming, through all these things. And even though in their conscious mind, they believe they're doing good. They believe it. They believe they're doing the right thing. Justin Trudeau gets up every day and brushes his teeth and says, I am saving the world from darkness, right? They all do. But what do they produce? Nothing. They produce nothing. Everything they do is off of what you have done. They leech from you and then reappropriate it. They take your hard-earned wealth and then they get to control it and decide where they're going to put it, right? So in Canada, they're going to take $1 billion out of our military budget because we can't afford it, right? And our military is already underfunded, but we can give $10 billion to Zelensky. No problem. We got that ready to go. Here's the wire. So, what's really happening here? So the cults that they come from are cults that have that entire mentality baked right in to the precepts of that cult. And the goal is power. So they're the religion of power, but not internal power. They're the religion of, I want power by way of power over others, power over resources, power over land. I want control. What kind of a psychology? We do this on Unslaved. What kind of psyche, what kind of conditioned psyche wants that? Because if you're in a healthy state of mind and you're balanced and you are doing what you guys are doing, you don't have any need or desire to control anybody else. You have none. You don't want to control other people. You want to control yourself. You want to be a master of your destiny. You want to reap what you sow. And if you make a mistake, you want to be getting the feedback for that naturally. You don't want all these government agents coming in and interrupting that natural process all the time. So there's a whole thing to get into on their psychology, but just in simple, these people seek power and they seek they're riddled with envy as well. That's another thing. And they can't operate themselves in a fair playing field, which is why they rig the game, which is why they act conspiratorially, which is why they operate the way that they do, through infiltration by hook and crook. See, the strong, empowered, free man never operates like that. It's always upfront, honorable. My word is my bond. I don't need to hide from anybody. I've got nothing, that's the type of person that, you'd love to get into government, right? But they don't really go there because those kind of people hate having power. They don't want to have power over other people. They have no desire, right? Like me, never you're going to see me in politics. I don't want it ever. Mm-hmm. I have zero desire to do that job. All right. I have zero desire to try to tell people how to live their lives and regulate everything. I don't want to do that. I want people to learn how to live their own lives. Right. But these types of people, they see, oh, there's a throne of power in the world. I need that. I want that. That's my religion. Oh, and there's entire cults that have been around for thousands of years that are oriented towards getting that and achieving it. I'll sell my soul to the devil. Where do I sign, bro? I've got nothing going on inside my own world, in my own mind. I'm a vacant soul. So I'll jump into the cliques and the cults and get pushed up the hill, and I'll say what they want and I'll sell it out. And, I'll go to their freaky parties and I'll not spill the beans on all the dark shit that's going on behind the scenes. No problem. Sign me up. That's the type of people that they recruit. And there's nothing but evil that comes as a result of it.
Mm-hmm. How do you... Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, because you mentioned about Trudeau, he wakes up in the morning, I'm doing good. Is there just a complete, again, you don't know these people personally, but a complete lack of self-respect. So they're consciously not doing anything sinister, where does this... I'm just so curious because I'm fascinated by the psychology and why people do the things they do. Is there any part of them that's oh, I'm completely lying right now because I said something 3 months ago or a week ago on the media, and now I'm saying the complete opposite thing that is you know what I mean? Do they have... I'm just curious, are they oh, now I'm doing the right thing. I'm lying. I lied 3 weeks ago, and now I'm doing a good thing because this is just what I believe, and I'm a good person. Like, I don't know. It's
Yeah, they believe ends justify the means.
okay.
So he gets up and he's go, all my lies, all my all that. I mean, no one consciously is going to sit there in front of you and go, I'm an evil person doing evil shit. Like nobody's ever, like Bundy isn't going to sit there and do this to you. Like nobody's going to say that. They all justify it, all of them, because that's how the psyche works. It protects itself.
Yeah.
Right. So you're living in it's like all of it. We were talking about these Karens and everybody going around smacking people up for not wearing masks and all this stuff. And you're like, who are you? What gives you the right? She thinks she's doing the right thing, but she's suffering under a delusion, and especially the delusion that she has any right whatsoever to tell you what to do, right? Even if what she was who cares what she believes, right? The fact that people think that they have the position and authority to tell you what to do alone is a red flag. Instead of what we're trying to do is go, hey, we're going to provide some information and you guys make up your own mind. I don't care what you do. It's up to you, man. I'm not here to force you to do anything. You're not signing any 5-year, 20-year contracts, none of that. So, but these people, they believe in the greater vision. That's where they get them. So like, okay, my question was the same as yours, Yerasimos. When you look at like the cults like Jim Jones, that's a great example, okay? Because I feel like we're living in a mini Jim Jones or a maximum Jim Jones experiment here, where what he did was he sold everybody on, we're going to have a new form of Christianity where at that time, in the context of the time, there was a big separation between whites and blacks in the churches. Okay. So he's like, we're going to make a church where it's like all people's church, everybody's welcome. And he literally had sermons all about socialism. He called himself the Black Raven of socialism. Right. And he gets a good reputation in California or wherever it was. And then he goes, well, the government doesn't like what I'm doing, so we're going to go hide out. And he takes people to wherever the hell it was, Jonestown. They create this Jonestown little clique, little island somewhere. And he brings over 1,000 people with their kids, and they start this little commune. And you slowly see the process of totalitarianism take place with this experiment. So what does he do? As soon as everybody gets there, he starts putting them to work. Then he starts getting them to train firearms. Then he starts creating a private security detail. Then he starts putting loudspeakers all over the camp, and he stays up till 3 a.m, drunk or high or whatever the hell, after he's probably had sex with a bunch of 13-year-olds. And he's sitting there telling everybody, just repeating the mantras, and then getting darker and darker and darker to the point where even the people that are brainwashed are starting to go, this is getting really messed up. Then it turns into, we have no way out. The government's going to come and arrest us. The only way is if we all ascend to the next dimension together. And this is where we get into the mass ritual suicide, where you can get what used to be just some normal parents that were looking for some kind of community and religion and solutions to their lives are suddenly capable of feeding poison to their children knowingly. Yeah. How does that happen? And did they think they were doing the right thing at the time? Of course they did. Was it the right thing? Fuck no. All right. Yeah. But how many instances can I roll out of this happening? That's the thing, guys. The more I started to dive into this theory where I didn't even have it all fleshed out, I just went, I'm just following my intuition on this. There's something here. There's no end to it. I could do 85 chapters of this series. It's just endless because there's so many examples. So people operating under the belief system that they are doing the good are the most easily manipulated by the true primary psychopaths who they don't even know what good is. What good, evil? They're the people telling you there's no such thing as good and evil. There's just actions and reactions. We're just computers. That's what they believe. So if you have that premise as your belief system, what are you capable of? Well, just go look at the history of the 20th century alone and then go back and just put it all together and go, oh, all of the worst dictatorships and totalitarians in history were all utopians. We're all goody two-shoes. Hey, we're going to save the world. Kumbaya, come together. All of them, every single one. What is it about that particular idea that sounds so good to all of us that ends up in mass genocide, ritual murder, cannibalism, evil that you just can't even imagine, organ harvesting, human trafficking? What the hell? So this means, it's like what Ayn Rand always said, if you keep running into, in the real world, if your experiment keeps failing and you keep seeing that there's a flaw and it's not producing the result you wanted, check your premise. Check your premise. These are people that they have no self-reflection. So in Trudeau's case, he's a narcissistic sociopath who was probably ritually sexually abused growing up in this cult. Okay. Because look who his parents were, look who his uncles were. Look at all these guys. They are raised and groomed. Then you find out there's an actual operation to manufacture these people into society, to put them and plant them in positions of power because they're morally compromised. And if you're morally compromised, and then the mafia, the real mafia, the high table, they got dirt on you, and they raised and groomed you to be the head of Disney or to be the head of some country or to be the head of the Trilateral Commission or the World Bank, you are controlled by blackmail. And then you don't want to think about you being in any way, shape, or form doing anything wrong or evil, because you can't face yourself, because you've actually murdered yourself on a psychological level. So then you get to this conclusion that you're no longer capable of doing evil, that everything you do is got the touch of the gods behind it. And isn't that how these people talk to us? They talk down to us. They try to tell us, you have to do these things or otherwise you're a baddie. You're the most evil names we can possibly conjure up just because you don't agree with us. That's what they did in Canada. They had a bunch of working class farmers and truckers and people that never protest, they just work 18 hours a day. And they suddenly shut everything down and come and freeze their ass off in Ottawa. And what do they get called? The most evil, vicious names you can imagine by the government. And you go, okay, what's up with that? Yeah. So David Icke was talking about the control of perception. And if they can control perception and install belief systems in average people that maybe mean well, but end up diffusing their well-meaning intentions into acting out the script that was given to them by people who don't mean well, it explains so much. And it means we're not just looking at we're learning why the system failed so epically. We're learning why criminality and tyranny and all these things keep coming back and they're so prevalent, is because of people operating under the illusion that they're working for the good, inability to look within and introspect and maybe self-criticize or self-correct. And so they can't see, they literally edit out the trauma of what they're doing. And then you sit down and you can get a bigger understanding of this by listening to some of the interviews with these various serial killers who never come out and say, I'm a horrible person. I did maybe only a few of them did, but they're probably lying.
Yeah.
They believe what they're doing is for the good, and yet they're wrong, and the actions demonstrate it,
Yeah. I mean, this is where psychology comes into play, man. It's so important, and knowing yourself. And a lot of these people they're incapable of doing it, because of the trauma. I mean, you have people who maybe haven't experienced ritual abuse and ritual trauma that have difficulty self-reflecting or really acknowledging the truth within, let alone someone who's been taken through these processes where their psyche's been shattered and they've been programmed and nurtured to be a certain way.
Right.
It's
wild.
Wild.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? Like, we look around your average person who's like cognitive dissonance on every little thing. Yeah, sure. We've all experienced trauma to some degree, but when you think about on the grand level, these people that have been, what's the word, molded to take on these positions, like you were saying, I can't even imagine, what's going on moment to moment within themselves. It's hard. I think that's the hard part too. When you think about psychopathy, is that most people, they just they can't imagine themselves being a certain way. And so to think that other people can, they just don't even go there very often.
That's a fantastic point. And it brings me to, what did we witness again during the pandemic? We witnessed people that we knew, that loved us, that we thought loved us unconditionally and would listen to us and have an open mind about our take on things, suddenly shut down and start unfriending you and telling you, don't call me again if you're not going to be taking 8 jabs and wearing 3 masks. We saw that happen. We saw people reporting their friends and family to the government, right? We saw this in East Germany with the Stasi. They recruited the population to become informants for them. And then what about all the people that clapped and cheered for all these dictators? Mao Zedong, Pol Pot, Hitler, Stalin, Klaus Schwab, doesn't matter. They're just clapping for it. And you go, how could you clap for something that turned out to be so incredibly evil? And then the people today that fell for this narrative that they were sold by the primary psychopaths who have an ulterior agenda, they don't know. They can't see what they're doing because it's what we've spoken about before. It's weaponized virtue. So they know the average person needs to feel good about what they're doing. We lean towards morality. We do because we realize it's essential for our survival, right? And so all they got to do is weaponize that and say, well, you're only moral if you follow all of our edicts without question, because if you don't, you're responsible for people dying. Meanwhile, the people telling you that, Big Pharma and the whole lot, are responsible for more people dying in this world than all the wars combined of the 20th century, right? Yeah. So what a contradiction. But just the fact what you're saying, Yerasimos, we don't even need to get like MK Ultra program Manchurian candidates here, okay? We saw it happen to people we know.
Oh, yeah.
Because of fear. That's the real trigger.
It really
That's
is,
what
man.
they play.
It really is. This is why I've even brought it up before. It's just like, I can't tell you the amount of instances. Like even when everything started, like my mom didn't really go along with the narrative in terms of, getting the jab, but she watches the news. She's an old school Greek. And like that first like month, she was like calling me and she was like really scared and like feeling like her body, like, I don't know, this might be the last time I talk to you, like full on. And I was like, Mom,
Wow.
do me a favor. Just do me a favor. Like for the next 48 hours, just do not watch the news. Just do not watch the news. And so I talked to her 48 hours later. She's like, Yerasimos, I feel better. I feel better now, like, so just that alone. And like, I had friends, I mean, we all did. I had friends who unfollowed me and, like probably were talking amongst themselves like, oh, Yerasimos is going off the deep end, even though I spoke about a lot of this stuff for years, about the pharmaceutical industry and the corruption. And I had one buddy of mine and we had a reconciliation, after 2-3 years, like we got back together, he came over, like we connected. And then finally the conversation came up of what was going on. And he said, hey man, so I just started doing some deep trauma work like 6 months ago. And I also stopped watching the news 6 months ago. And I happened to be watching a sports interview of some basketball players saying why he didn't get the vaccine. And because he grew up holistically. And he's like, I was like, man, Yerasimos, like that's how he is. He's been that way his whole life. Like, it's like, it's so I feel like people who don't get exposed to the propaganda arm of these pharmaceutical companies, of the government, they're less likely to just be totally hoodwinked under this trance. You know what I mean? So just that alone, that simple act of like, I mean, you saw the memes, like throw your TV out the window. Like that alone allows a person to just maybe get a little closer to that inner voice within themselves that's away from the slogans and the phrases and the programming, to be like, oh wait, like I love this dude. This is my friend. I care about him. We shared so many experiences together. But if you don't disconnect yourself from this level of programming, it's really, really difficult.
Yeah.
For people.
Just the whole point of propaganda is to continually chip away at one's own self-trust. Continually provide different boogeymans, different scenarios that are outside the individual's control, which would have them relinquish enough responsibility to be like, okay, I can't trust myself in this arena. And like, I mean, for kids, like I'm sure your kids, my kids that aren't raised watching this or being exposed to this, like continually, it's like they trust themselves, they trust life, they trust their body to do what needs to be done, and so they're going to be much more quote unquote immune to this when they grow up and they face it, in the world themselves, because they've had firsthand experience of, hang on a second, I don't need to outsource my power in this regard. The world isn't scary, right? If I'm experiencing some symptoms, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. No one panicked around me.
Yeah. Don't control your own mind, someone else will.
Yeah, that exactly. And both of you, that's brilliant, because I think that gets to the root of it, and it also exposes the solution, right? Because if you don't control your own mind, someone else will, and that's the game we're playing. And that's the test we came. I believe in my heart that this is the test we came here to pass. Can you come into this world as an original and stay an original? Or are you going to come into this world and become a copy of a copy of a copy of other people's thoughts, ideas, control over your mind. And if you understand the basic equation that the people that have no inner self-control are going to always seek external control over you. If people that love nothing are going to sell you the most on why we need to love others and do all this other stuff and know nothing about love, but are going to be the number one preachers of it. And that you start to twig a few things and realize, hey, all the solutions are within, meaning I can trust my own mind. If you can learn to trust your own mind, then you can listen and consult with people who have expertise and knowledge, and you can make a choice as to which direction you go to. You've not given your power away when you do that. But when you go, this is too scary, too much, I don't have the time to research this stuff and learn for myself and figure it out, I'm just going to go with the most popular opinion out there. That's the easy way out. And that's the easy road to selling your soul, selling your mind, selling your body, and look at the results historically and presently when that happens. And look at the results of the people that, even becoming this individual that can think for themselves and reason for themselves, they might be outcast. They might become an outsider. They might be the most attacked and ridiculed. They're the crab in the bucket trying to climb out of the bucket. And all the other crabs are like, what do you think you are? Who do you think you are climbing out of the bucket? Must be nice to be you. Get back here, you. And they want you to be enslaved with them. Meanwhile, you're like, I was literally showing you the way out of this shit. And you pulled me back. Mm-hmm. So, this is why they want their voice installed in your head, these control freaks, whether they're in your own personal life or whether we're magnifying this up to the deep state shadow government level. It's the same mechanism. It's just on steroids, amplified. And the solution's the same, whether you're dealing with people in your own life or whether you're dealing with these bastards, is withdraw your energy from them. They are energy vampires. They don't have a self-sustaining energy system. That's why they prey on you. That's why they want you. You gotta change the weather by paying taxes and ceding your territory to centrally controlled, unelected bureaucracies. You gotta stop the fear of running around the world by taking these experimental jabs that God knows what's going to happen to you, and losing your businesses and shutting down and letting BlackRock take over your neighborhood and set up 15-minute cities. You got to do that. It's for the greater good of the greater number. This is the sales pitch of all these virtuosos. And the people selling virtue are the least virtuous. The people not even talking about it, but simply acting and doing things in the world that are virtuous. Those are the shining examples, right? So that's why the people that are overselling it, I'm like, you're full of shit. You're the snake oil salesman. The people that are under fire, being censored, going uphill, having to find tremendous amounts of courage to stand up and tell the truth as they see it. I tell people, trust the courageous if you don't know who to trust. And then if that's the starter, because ultimately it all leads to you trusting yourself. And the final comment is, what's the difference now where they're saying, don't trust your own mind, trust the experts. What's the difference between that and back in the day when they used to say, don't trust your own mind, trust the priests, trust the kings and queens. They know what's best. Mommy and daddy. And that's people don't know the psychology. That government, big daddy, all that is a projection of an archetype in your mind of the father figure, of the anima animus aspect that's built within you. You have the mother father archetype built within you. You have the kingdom of heaven built within you. It's neither here nor there, we were told. That's the page everybody skipped over because it's not as that puts you out of slavery, but into personal responsibility mode, which to some people feels worse than slavery. They'd rather be slaves than that. And the people that the dark side of the force knows that, they know how to exploit it, and they know how to sell you the disguise of virtue. So people feel like they're virtuous going out and what's that? Punch a Nazi, punch everybody that doesn't agree with you, or we're going to go and burn down cities to save people's. I don't know what their argument is for some of this stuff. It's just so ridiculous now. But I'm the best student in the class. I'm going to do whatever big government says to do without question. So I'm virtuous because I listened. That's the thing. Obedience is virtue today. Mm-hmm. When it used to be virtue is disobedience to these tyrannical dictators. So I say we got to be a little more disobedient and non-compliant with this and obey the voice within, which is the voice that these people running the show cut off. And that's why they are forcing you to not only follow their rules, but they want worship. They want to be the gods. They want to be that. That's the end goal. But they're going to sell you on it being, whoa, we're here saving the planet. Of course. It's the oldest trick in the book.
Yeah.
Too many people fall for it. No one's saving the planet. The planet's doing what it's doing. Save yourself, man. That's the whole point. But they want to go, no, you can't save yourself. We need to save a small minority of people that are being oppressed. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to destroy everybody's lives and scorch the earth to do it. That's how you know it's a delusion, it's psychotic, and if somebody believes a lie and then acts on the premise of that lie, they're not going to believe they're lying. Mm-hmm. They're going to believe they're telling the truth. Justin Trudeau thinks he is out there telling you the truth. But the reason he believes it's the truth is because somewhere in his mind is a lie that he has told himself that he believes. And then he's acting on it and telling you, you better be believing the same lie I told myself, or you are the evil one. But this is how these people roll. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So I just hope people see it. And this is the road towards reclaiming sovereignty, reclaiming yourself. And in the end, it will be, like G. Edward Griffin said, it will be the greater good for the greater number if you do that. That is the only way to make it the greater good for the greater number. Not by forcing everybody to follow a bunch of nonsense, but by working on yourself and reclaiming yourself. And I think that's the only way out of it is going within.
Well said, man.
Yeah, man. Do not let your self-worth be dictated by the approval of others, right? Just by yourself.
That's it.
That's the only tick you need.
That's all you need. That's where God lives. So listen to that voice and you're unslaved. Simple as that. Even if they lock you in a dungeon, doesn't matter. You can sit there with a smile on your face going, I'm chained to the wall, the freest man that's ever lived. You're the slave.
Powerful, man. So, dude, thank you so much for sharing time with us again. People can go to www.thecultofthemedics to watch, or is it just
it's just Cult of the Medics, cultofthemedics.com.
Cultofthemedics.com. Go check it out. There's so much material there to kind of just feast on and to stimulate a lot of thought and contemplation. Anything else you want to share, man, you got going on?
No, I'm just focusing really hard on this chapter 10. I'm hoping it'll be ready in the next couple weeks or so. I wanted to polish it, make it right. I think it's gonna be the best one. I hope people go and catch up and give me their feedback. And then I've got, more podcasts coming up, more things in the pipeline. So you can follow me I'm on X at Truth Warrior Dad. If you want to check me out there, I get into some nice spats with people on that platform because that's what that platform's all about. It's a lot of fun. And then and I post good stuff there, I think. And then on Telegram, I put a lot of documentation and links and research notes and things like that for people. And you can get me DW Truth Warrior there if you're on that platform. And other than that, always fun. Keep doing what you're doing. And this was a great chat.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. And just want to say to everyone too, David's doing all this work. He's putting out Cult of Medics for free. So, drop him a donation if you feel called to, because that work is really incredible.
Absolutely. David, number 5 in the books. Thanks once again, man. You're just a machine, bro. The way you're able to relay the research that you do in such a cohesive way, in a really accessible way, it blows my mind, man. So I'm sure it'll be blowing a lot of minds out there too. And everyone else, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Smoking mirrors, I'm seeing through the illusion. Waking up in a time they think you're in a delusion. Somebody set the alarms, cause they be too busy snoozing. I'm in a DeLorean, fast forward in evolution.